Hello and welcome to not just any episode of the Christian Reeve podcast. This is an M&S. No, I'm just joking. Happy New Year, everybody. It's the first episode of the podcast of the new year, 2022. And I would have done this episode sooner, but I spent New Year's Day hungover, unfortunately. I don't drink at all, save for like special occasions or once in a blue moon if I go out. Like, I'm not saying I never have a beer or whatever, but like I don't, as a rule, I don't generally drink a lot, because I don't know, I feel like I've grown out of it a little bit. I'm just very busy a lot of the time, and wow, I mean, I just don't have time to be hungover because I don't know about you guys, but I'm 28 right now, and every time there's like a hangover situation, it doesn't matter what I do, stay hydrated, stick to one drink, none of those things seem to work. I just always feel terrible. So that kind of makes me not want to drink, really. Do you know what? I was going to just dive into last year and do a recap and do my new goals for for the new year, but I think I might just talk about this for a second. So this is how I spent my New Year's. I thought I was just going to sit and watch Marvel movies and drink by myself, which sounds kind of depressing, but that's basically how I spent Christmas Day, and that was fine. And I kind of just resigned myself to that. I did a 5-hour live stream on Twitch for my Twitch Twitch audience, people that watch me on Twitch. Anyway, I didn't plan to do that. I just wanted to start earlier, and it was going well. And then I sort of cut it off about the time that I was starting to get drunk. So I was already drunk by about when did I stop? I think about 8-9 p.m. And I received a text from my housemate saying, "Hey, let's have a drink together," because he's in the house as well. I thought that was great. I was like, "Yeah, cool." So we're just drinking, listening to music, and then we both kind of agreed, "Yeah, let's go and watch the fireworks from the nearby bridge." And that was a great idea. That was how we literally spent New Year's. So the moment that the clock struck 12 or whatever, we didn't do a countdown or any of that lame stuff. No offense to anyone that does the countdowns. I've done the countdowns myself. It's just, I don't know. I felt like that might be a bit lame. Just two guys standing on a bridge going 9, 8. Actually, I didn't even think about that. I'm just being, I haven't properly woken up yet, so maybe that's why. Anyway, we have a drink. We have quite a few drinks, and literally every single direction that I look in are fireworks. We didn't know where to look. It was awesome. And then, it was kind of done, and I was expecting him to just say, "Oh, let's go home then." But he just turned and looked at me with that look in his eyes. I knew straight away that as soon as the look happened, because I've seen that look many times and it's never good, but you got to live, right? You just got to go for it sometimes. So he gave me the look and he said, "You want to go into the city?" And we live quite close to the city. I say close, it's about 20-25 minute walk, but I don't know, it goes by quickly. We walk quite quickly. It just doesn't feel like that long. You can take a bus if you want, but yeah. Anyway, so we're in the city and we're running around shouting "See!" like Ronaldo, because that's a thing here in Manchester and the UK, because he came back to Manchester United. This is Cristiano Ronaldo, the football player, and his kind of signature celebration is to sort of run, skip, jump, and then just shout "See" at the top of his lungs, and the whole crowd does it. It's actually really cool, like, to watch the whole crowd in a stadium do that. And it's just become a bit of a meme at this point. And there's video evidence of me doing this. If you go on my second TikTok account, Christian Reeve 2, you can see a video of me really drunk at New Year's doing the see really loudly. But anyway, so that's what we're doing. And we're just being like overly nice to everyone, because why wouldn't you? But we're very drunk. So, you know, we're being overly friendly to strangers. But everyone up north is really nice. I don't know. I always seem to shit on London, even though I'm from London. But that's kind of what we do in London. You know what I mean? We grumble about it and we just get on with it. And there are things that are cool and good about London, but mostly it's just like hassle to live there. And I never particularly got on with the people in London. Like, not everyone, don't get me wrong. There's pockets of really awesome people in London and spots and such, just like any major city. But ever since I moved up to Manchester, I've been very kind of just overwhelmed with how nice everybody is. And it just blows me away every single time. And New Year's Day was no exception. Just really nice people. Everyone's in a good mood because it's New Year's, you know. Even people that were coming back from what looks like work, or they didn't look very happy, we would be like, hey, happy New Year. And they just put a smile on their face. Like, hey, here's a little bit of hope, you know, New Year, maybe the new opportunities, right? That's the way I always try to look at a new year. Even the New Year's that I've had where, you know, I began the year kind of really depressed or miserable about something. Like this 100% was the best New Year's I've had since I went to Prague in December 2014. So New Year's 2015. This was the best one since then. Like, I just genuinely felt happy. I was enjoying myself. I felt like this is going to be it's going to be a new year. Really? Really? Who'd have thought it? No, but I was excited. I'm still excited. I felt like towards the end of 2021, I just kind of kept thinking about the opportunities that 2022 is going to bring. And I've just, well, let's say the last 6 months of 2021, I've been sort of filled with positivity and hope for the future. Because when I started doing all this content stuff in 2019, I didn't have a plan. The only thing I had in mind was, I'm going to do all of these things that I gave up on, that I never sort of bothered to try because I thought I wasn't good enough, or I didn't have any ideas, or I just know that's not for me. You know, I was like, well, maybe it is for me. You know, I've always been a musician. I've always enjoyed writing music. Why can't I do acting? Why can't I create videos for people on the internet? Why can't I do live streaming? Why can't I do a podcast? You know, who says I can't? You know, and of course you get like hate comments and stuff, and people try and tear you down. I mean, I get daily hate comments everywhere, but it doesn't faze me anymore. I feel like, in a way, I feel indestructible, because the most important thing to me, and the main thing going through my head, is that I love doing this, and it never stops being fun. And I think that's sort of maybe the biggest key I've kind of figured out or taken from 2021. I'll go into some life lessons in a second, because I'm kind of, at the moment, my mind is scrambled. I had like an idea of how to structure this and everything, like my normal episodes, but I guess I expected this episode to be like a big reflection, you know, an introspective moment, which I don't know if that's necessarily interesting for you to listen to or watch. But hey, this is my podcast, so I'm going to do what I want. And I wanted to do more episodes like this, like I said last time, where, you know, I discuss more, and maybe it is just me, and, you know, maybe there isn't always an expectation for there to be a guest in order to like carry the show and have something happening, you know. Because I've seen many people that do podcasts solo and they nail it. And why can't I do it? You know, back to that theme. Why can't I? Who says I can't? I'm just going to do it. That's how I started this podcast. As you guys know, like, I literally I wanted to do a podcast for many, many years. And then, you know, I did one with a couple of friends online. It was short-lived. And then I was like, yeah, by that point I had the podcast bug. I wanted to do my own podcast. So I was like, let's just do it. Let's just see what happens. And here we are, entering the second year of it. It'll be 2 years in June, I believe, which has flown by. I mean, this is episode 125. Just to put that into perspective, there has been 125 episodes, of which I believe over 90 of them, maybe 100 of them, no, maybe I think like 110 of them have been interviews. And then the rest are the small episodes that I did where I carry a particular topic, where I've got a bunch of ideas for that, but obviously the interviews take precedence, and I feel like that will always be the more interesting content. But you know, I'm open to ideas. If there's particular topics you guys want to hear me talk about at length, let me know and I'll do it. But anyway, reflecting on 2021, I've learned many things in 2021. I think I learned to think more about my brand and what makes sense for me and what I need to achieve in the future. So what I mean by this is, for example, I was offered the opportunity to go on a television show here in the UK. And, you know, it's just standard Saturday night television. And immediately my first thought was, oh, television. I could, you know, get noticed, get more attention towards my brand, etc., etc. But the more and more I thought about it, and then when I did the audition, or the preliminary audition, because there's like later auditions, but I got shortlisted basically. I just had a bad feeling the whole time. Like, this isn't right for me. This doesn't feel like what I should be doing. And I spoke to a bunch of friends about it, one friend in particular, and I basically just told her all of the different reasons why I didn't think it was a good idea. And she agreed with every single one. And the only positive we could find weighed against all the negatives was, oh, you know, it's a chance I'll be on telly. But she made a very astute point, which I think is very important and links to this. She said, this would be the first thing that you've ever done on television. And years from now, you'll go back to this point. You know, maybe it'll be, this is playing like fantasy, but let's say I was on a chat show and I'm talking about my career and they bring up this embarrassing show that I've been on. And you know what? It doesn't sound that embarrassing, the premise of the show. It kind of sounds like a fun show to be on. And, you know, I wish them well with their show because I think it will get some attention. I mean, we love music here in the UK and it's a music-based show. I can't go into too many details. I mean, you know, I haven't signed anything or anything, but I just like to just keep these things private and, you know, just out of respect, you know. Don't want to like badmouth their show before it even comes out, and then, like, you know, that's just not necessary or nice, you know. And this is just an amicable thing as well. Like, the producer of the show asked me why I wasn't interested, and I was just truthful. I just said I don't think it will be a good fit for either of us as well, not just for my brand, but also for them, because I think you always have to think about, because my mindset is always focused on my audience and the type of content I create for that audience. You know, I don't create things solely for the audience, but I try to kind of think about the types of things I'm creating and if that makes sense for that audience. So to kind of break that down, I don't promote the podcast much on my short platforms. So what I mean is TikTok, Instagram. You know, I have Instagram and TikTok for the podcast with like small little snippets of clips, because of course you would do that. But I tend to keep them quite short. I don't upload long clips on there anymore. I tried that for a while, but it's unnecessary. So I just save the long clips for YouTube and have the short clips on those websites. And that's just a small example of me thinking, okay, these platforms are built for short videos. So even on TikTok, you can upload like clips that are like 3 minutes long, but you'll notice that most people still stick to like less than a minute or less than 30 seconds even. And sometimes that would be to do with the sound not lasting for a long time, or, there'll be another reason. But generally, I think it's people's understanding that, the shorter the better for those particular platforms. And the way I've thought about my brand is I will try to insert who I am, my personality onto all of these different platforms, these different media channels in a way that makes sense for those channels, because you can't force your will or your yourself onto those things. You still have to abide by the rules, so to speak, in terms of, okay, if it's TikTok, then it's like shorter videos. If it's YouTube, it's long videos. If it's a podcast, I mean, generally the focus should always be the sound. I know there's a video version of this for YouTube, but I suppose the biggest thing I always think about with the podcast is how do I create something that is easy to listen to, has kind of a structure that you can follow, and doesn't dart around in too many different directions. Because look, I have a tendency to go on tangents. One of the things I've learned is how to bring it back and make everything connect to each other. But I'm human, we get excited, we go on tangents, especially today. It's the 2nd of January, and I'm just filled with excitement and wonder about what this year could bring, and the opportunities and everything, because 2021 opened my eyes in many ways. I feel like 2020 was the time that I just had the opportunity to just work on this stuff a lot, because for most of 2020, most of 2020 I was unemployed, and that went into 2021. And so because of that, I would look for jobs every single day, but you can't look for jobs 9-10 hours a day. It doesn't matter what the job center says. That's just not possible. Like, you know what I mean? There's only so many jobs being posted. You know what I mean? And also, one thing that happened which was weird during COVID but made sense is that there were just less jobs. Like, people were not posting ads because, we were in a COVID situation and most places had closed down. So where are you going to work? It was either work at a supermarket or maybe like one of those COVID testing centers, or that's kind of it, really. You know what I mean? Like, everything else was shut. And I had some interviews over the time, never really got successful. I finally got a job in, November of this year, of 2021. So I've had a job for about 2 or 3 months now. And throughout the whole time, I always had like freelance work, like marketing work. I've been doing that since 2018, just like basic copywriting stuff. But that stuff is not reliable. You get clients for maybe 6 months at a time, and then sometimes people go quiet on you for a while, or people just don't want to work with you anymore but don't say anything. Which, just on a side note, that is a little bit unprofessional when people do that. I remember there was this one person I was working with for quite a while, about 5 months, and one day they just stopped sending work through, and I was like, oh, hey, do you know when we're gonna sort of receive the next round of assignments? And then they said, yeah, sometime in March or whatever. This would have been last year. And then it came to March, I followed up on it, and then I followed up again, and then they started ghosting me, which was weird for like a business contact to start ghosting me, but I'm sure they had their reasons. Maybe they just, didn't have a budget for it anymore, but just didn't want to tell me that. I don't know. It's people work in weird ways in the business world. Point is, it's fleeting. It comes and goes, and there are times when I'm really busy and times when I'm not so busy. Although, to be fair, I'm generally always busy now because of creating stuff online and doing all of these things. It just occupies my time, and I like to be busy. I think the biggest thing that being unemployed taught me is that when you have too much time and nothing to do with the time, that gets depressing. It's not the first time I've been unemployed in my life. There was one very brief moment after I finished university in September 2017, where I moved from England to Estonia with my ex's family. And I, for a brief time, lived on her parents' farm for about 3, 4 months. But I think the reason that that didn't hit me is A, I was around other people, and B, I was working on the farm, because if you live on a farm, you have to work on the farm to keep it going. That's just how it works. And I liked the experience. It was something new. I was happy. And I was applying for jobs still, marketing jobs, but I just hadn't had much success. And I got a job in February of 2018, I believe. And then I've been in employment ever since, save for that period I just mentioned. But this was different. This was like, even with the hours that I would spend searching for jobs and then looking for opportunities to make content online, even with all that stuff, I still had loads of time. And I was like, what do I do with this time? I don't understand how anyone could live like this for extended periods of time. And it really just got to me. And inevitably, I had lots of time to think, which is kind of a double-edged sword. On one hand, it's very good. I recommend that everyone try to find moments in their lives when they can just sit and be, and thoughts will come to you, and you will figure things out about the past that you haven't had the opportunity to think about, because you're giving yourself that time, I think we live in distraction in life far too much, and we don't spend enough time working on ourselves and working on our minds and reflecting on the past in a positive way. It's very easy to torture oneself and think, oh, if I'd have done this, things would have been better. But it's like, you're not the person you are now back in the past. You were a different person, and you had your decisions in front of you, and you made your decision based on what you thought was right at the time. And, we all have regrets. We all have ways we would have done things better. But I don't know, my mindset is always to just do the very best you can in that moment and let it be. Once it's done, it's done. You can't change it. So you got to stick with that decision and realize that, life is a storybook with different chapters, and you can always write a new chapter. Just because some of the chapters might have sucked doesn't mean the rest of the book has to suck. Hey, I don't know. I'm just trying to sound cool. No, but I genuinely think that way. I mean, and I think 2021 especially has given me hope. It's given me belief in what I'm doing, because I've built like a little community online. There's a lot of positivity and positive comments, and people making me realize that, maybe I really have a chance with acting and voice acting and presenting and music and everything that I'm doing online. Because that used to feel like a pipe dream. And now it doesn't feel like a dream anymore. It feels like I'm very close to like winning the race. Like I'm this close. You can't see me doing the action. This close. And I just have to keep going. Yeah, it's a bit like, if you've ever been in a race situation, or of course you have, or, an experience where you, like when you're at the gym, right? And you're training, and your body's kind of telling you to stop, but you just want to push it that little bit more, get that last mileage in, maybe break a record, whatever, right? And because you'll get the ultimate satisfaction when you push it, when you push your everything, your mind, your body over that edge, and you get to that point where you enter a new phase, if you like, you become the next best version of yourself. And that's how I feel right now. It feels like every time I take a new opportunity, make use of a new opportunity, or I just put myself out there a little bit, try something I've never tried before, whatever, I get surprised at what happens. I try to keep a clear mind now. There are moments when, like I'll turn on a stream and there'll be no one there, and it kind of grounds me again. It makes me think like, oh, I'm just a nobody. There's no one here. But then somehow it always seems to work out. So a few people will come along and and the stream will become really fun and awesome, right? And I think what I've learned now is to kind of lower my expectations and not get ahead of myself with regards to that. Like, yes, I might have some live streams that did well, but that doesn't mean that everyone will do well. Same with videos. Take what I achieved in 2021. These, no matter what happens from this point onwards, these will always be achievements that I'm very proud of, and means that I think there's something about what I do that maybe is worthwhile and people should invest in. I don't know. I managed to get a video to 2.9 million views on TikTok. It went viral. I checked the rules. A video has to go above 1 million for it to be viral. So it went viral. And I got tons of followers on TikTok from that, about 29,000. And I thought naively, oh, this is it. I've made it. This is the beginning. It's time for me to become successful. Yes, finally. And of course, it didn't happen. And what that taught me, as I say, is to lower expectations and not get ahead of myself. And I kept working. I'm not going to stop working. But my attitude for a little bit after that was I was very disappointed. I'm never going to give up, but at the same time, I felt a bit like a deflated balloon after that. I felt like, oh, I guess I was just kidding myself. But, these things take time. I think that, relatively speaking, I haven't been doing this long. I started properly in 2019, but it wasn't really till 2020 that I started to make some headway, I suppose. And I covered this in one of my latest live streams, but I wanted to cover it here. I've gained a lot of confidence through podcasting, live streaming, just spending a lot of time in front of a camera. I've learned how to do that, which again sounds strange. I mean, is it really that difficult to talk to a camera? I would say yes. If you don't feel comfortable just talking, for one, out loud, that's the first part of it that's quite difficult. And then the second part of it is having that confidence and belief in yourself to just carry that conversation and make it a reality. For instance, every time I go into a live stream now, I don't have a plan. I have like, okay, this might be an AMA. I encourage people to ask me questions or, ask me for advice or whatever. Just get conversations going, and then I'll provide the rest, kind of thing. That's my mindset, and it works every time. It works. Some days better than others, and that's generally how I approach most things. Is I have like a very calm mindset. And I don't panic. I know that it'll be fine. Like I try to upload daily content online every single day, just short videos, because it's not difficult. But what I try to do is make sure that it's like good quality stuff. Like they are good videos that people would want to watch. They're not just lazy. That's what I'm looking for. I can't have a lackadaisical kind of attitude towards these things. I have to always put my very best into these things, which of course one should do, but at the same time, I think I've learned more and more as time has progressed that the attitude is everything, and to continually work on that and make sure that every thing that I do is the best representation of me that it can be. Either it showcases my music ability or my acting ability or my speaking abilities or whatever the case may be, right? I learned the same thing with the podcast. When I first started the podcast, you'll notice there's quite a few episodes that are very short, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And I look at that now in retrospect and kind of feel like, oh, feels a bit lazy. I could have done longer episodes. But you know what? It's not all about quantity. It's about quality. When I go back to those episodes, I'm still proud of them, but I was still figuring out what the podcast is at that point. For instance, my I suppose minimum amount of time that the podcast needs to be is about 45 minutes. That's what I aim for, around that kind of 40 mark. I feel like that's enough time. Any less than that is not really acceptable. And I'm sure no one would penalize me for it or be angry if it was shorter, but I just, in my mind, that's what a podcast is, anywhere from like 45 minutes to an hour and a half. But of course, my episodes go for varying lengths, and my attitude is always, it's as long as it needs to be. You know, it can be an hour, it can be 2 hours, it can be 3 hours, whatever, but it will be for as long as it needs to be. You know, end it when it needs to end, not ending it where you have to end it. Like, I remember when I did my first podcast before the Christian Reeve podcast, I did one with a couple of friends, and I've said this before, but it's relevant right now. It always used to bug me how we had to end the episodes early. I can't remember why, for editing purposes, or there was like a reason why we couldn't do it past 45 minutes or something. And every episode, like afterwards, I would say to the guys, like, oh, like, I was barely getting started. I barely scratched the surface. And, you know, they said, well, this is all we can do, blah, blah, blah. And I understood, but it just sucked, right? And I thought to myself, if I ever do my own podcast, I want to be able to talk for as long as I need to talk, so that when I'm done, I'm like, okay, I'm done now. And that's what I've done with this podcast. And it's weird. It's like a sense of it's hypotherapy in a way. You know, I get it out of my system, and now I can relax. It's done. You know, obviously there is this tendency for one to feel lazy towards these things sometimes. You know, like, oh, I could just release an episode just to get an episode out there. Like, for example, I missed a week last year. Well, I missed various weeks last year of the podcast. Normally that just meant that I had a guest pull out. You know, we get a lot of cancellations for guests. But also there's other reasons for that. You know, for example, the last week of the year in 2021, the last episode I did was on volunteering, and it was a speaking episode. And I think my mindset was for a while, oh, maybe I could do an end of year recap, and then I'll also do another episode, which is like Happy New Year, goals for the new year. But I thought, why not just do one whole big episode? Because that makes more sense, doesn't it? To kind of have a recap of what you've learned in the previous year, and then talk about what's going to happen in the new year, or at least what you're planning to do in the new year. That made more sense. The lazy part of me was like, oh, I could just do 2 episodes, and then boom, that's more content, la, la, la. But it's like, no, that's the wrong attitude to have. You got to think about things from the perspective of what is the best possible thing for the listener or the viewer. What's the best quality way of doing this? And that made sense in my head. So I missed a week or a week and a half, whatever it was. And I'm glad I did that, because now I'm sitting here relaxed, happy, and ready for this new year with this new episode, and then the new people that I will interview on this podcast, and who knows what's going to happen in this new year. But yeah, I just want to run through a few of the other lessons that I learned this year. It's not all of the lessons, but you know, I figured I would go through all of them. So okay, there's only really one more actually. But maybe this is the most important thing. I've learned to appreciate the little things more, and to be grateful for everything that I have. I'm not a religious man, but I did find myself a few days ago sitting and thanking, I guess, saying thanks for what I have, like everything. And I do that more and more now. I try to really make the most of everything that happens, every moment. I try to enjoy everything as much as I can. Maintain good relations with all the people in my life. Because life is too short. Nothing is certain. you know, as morbid as it sounds, you know, I'm always thankful every day I wake up. Every day I wake up, I'm like, wow, another day. I've made it to another day. Here we are. It's another day. And I think one of the biggest reasons why I think that way is because there's people I knew who are no longer with us anymore. Their lives were cut short. And I think something kind of snapped in my head when that happened. It's difficult when you see people pass away, you know, from old age or sicknesses, or, you know, sometimes people just pass away earlier and it's a surprise to everyone. But when it's people, you know, you went to school with, people you went to university with, young people with the rest of their lives ahead of them, it really hits you, because you start looking at your own life and everything you've done, and suddenly you feel a lot more fragile. You stop feeling invincible and you start feeling like, wow, it can happen, man, at any time. And obviously I'm referring to instances where people took their own lives, but that's another thing I learned, you know, is like how deep mental health is as an issue, and how it can affect you, and how you never really necessarily know that someone's going through these issues. Um, Sometimes they could be smiling and happy, and next minute they're just gone, and no one has any idea. I've never suffered from like, I always would say I've suffered from like acute depression, never like the full on blown one, but I've had like, is extreme sadness a thing? I've had that. Um, I've had depressed moments here and there, and naturally have dark thoughts. And I wondered a lot of the time when those things happen, I guess this is the path that you go down when sometimes people branch off and take their lives. This is the path they went down, and they go through stages. And, you know, one of my housemates explained how depression works to me. And it really helped me to understand much more about the condition, and why it's so important to check on everyone, check on all your friends, your family at all times. Make sure they're doing well. Don't just ask, you know, how's work, all that shit. Ask like how they're doing, like really doing, you know? Just find out. Oh, sorry, I didn't really want to get so dark with this, but I mean, at the end of the day, that's what life is. It's the good and the bad, isn't it? You can't avoid the bad. Some people might spend their entire lives running away from the negative things about life, but it's like yin and yang, you know. You got to accept the bad, embrace the good. It makes sense in my head, but yeah. But just going back to that point about appreciation, I mean, when I talk about the little things, I mean just like little moments you get to spend with friends and family, appreciating nature, enjoying a good meal, you know. Sometimes I just sit there and I'm just grateful to have food on my plate, you know. I remember one time I was sitting with my ex's family, and her father, okay, I'll keep this private, but basically he'd been through some things. Let's put it that way. He'd been through some pretty difficult times in his life, and he's a very peaceful Zen kind of guy now. And it blows me away when I think about everything that he went through, and, you know, how he's come through that and he's at this point. But I guess it really does come down to choice. You know, you can choose to pursue that life if you really want it. But it is hard to get there, especially if you've had traumatic experiences in the past. But I remember one evening we were sitting eating dinner, and I ate half of my meal. I wasn't very hungry for some reason. And he stopped eating and he looked at me in the eyes. And he wasn't annoyed, but there was kind of like a look of, how could I put it? It was a look as though to say, what are you doing, in a very calculated way, but it wasn't meant to be mean. It was just kind of like, what? You've stopped? That kind of thing. But I immediately knew I'd messed up. I stopped eating and he said, what are you doing? You're not hungry? And I said, no, I'm quite full. And he said, you should eat. You never know when your next meal's coming. And that just hit me right there. I was like, oh, wow. Because I knew exactly what he meant. Like, yeah, it's true. You know, you can't always expect things to happen in life. Expectation is an enemy. You know, you'll be disappointed, and sometimes things get taken away from you, which is all the more reason to be appreciative of what you have. But the way he said that hit me on a deeper level. I understood this is a man who's had times in his life where maybe he didn't have those things, and here I am sitting there with the choice of, you know, whether or not to eat this. But for some, it's a choice of, well, there is no choice. You just don't have anything, you know. So I try to be as appreciative as I can of everything that I have, small successes I make in life, but more importantly, I try to be appreciative of the people in my life and enjoy them as much as I can, if that makes sense. But yeah. I returned to Twitch last year after a long kind of absence. I went from, I started on Twitch. I started Twitch streaming in March of 2020 on the advice of a friend, and he was right. It worked. But it didn't work straight away. What I learned is that you have to build a community elsewhere and bring it onto the platform, and then you can start building from there. But you have to have an existing core audience from somewhere. I know people that have built an audience on Twitch from scratch, but it's a lot harder to do that. And that's what I did. I built up a little community on TikTok. I got banned from live streaming on TikTok. Everyone knows that story, so I won't go into that. But it left me wondering where to go. I wanted to keep doing live streaming. I think there was an expectation from my community to continue doing that because they received a lot of enjoyment from it. So we went to Instagram for a while and it worked, but it wasn't the same because we weren't ever able to reach new people. I don't know why. I think Instagram just prevents you from being seen by new people. So you only get seen by existing people that follow you, which is fine, but kind of sucks because I'm always trying to grow and reach new people. But then I received a lot of comments from my audience telling me that the quality wasn't so good. Sometimes the image and sound was off. You know, there were just different issues with it. So then I thought about returning to Twitch because not only did I know it would be better quality, but also I actually figured out that you could stream on your phone, which shows how out of touch I am with technology, really, that I didn't know that. But it's not like I grew up with technology or anything. But yeah, I found that out. And then I was like, this is clearly the right move. And lo and behold, we made Twitch affiliate within a week, which is quite funny because I remember when I first started streaming on Twitch, I was trying for like 6-7 months to try and get affiliate. And I was so close, but I never made it. And then as soon as I returned to the platform, I make it in a week. It's just funny. Sometimes you just got to laugh at life. It's hilarious. But anyway, the bigger realization, I think, is that I realized this is a better fit. It makes sense because this is a platform built for streaming, building communities. And that's exactly what I wanted to do, is build a community of people who just want to kind of come to a nice, safe space and just enjoy having a chat and learning and growing together and having good times and good vibes, you know, and that's kind of what my live streams were all about. I never envisioned that I would create that. I'll be honest. I didn't actually have a plan. Surprise, surprise. Coming into that, I just kind of thought, okay, I'll just create this live stream platform concept idea in my head, I'll just do it, and then I'll just work on it over time. And that's what I have done. But throughout that time, I've built a community where the people of that community now interact with each other, which is amazing. They've made friends and stuff, which is pretty cool. And they support each other, and everyone's, you know, supportive of each other's lives and projects and stuff. And that all came about because one day I decided to just turn my camera on and start showing up. So it's kind of mind-blowing to think about sometimes, but I'm grateful for it. So thank you for everyone that's watched the live streams, and also who's listened to the podcast. I know that there's many people that watch the live streams and also listen to the podcast, and there's a lot of people I know that also don't go to the live streams but do listen to the podcasts and watch my videos. So thank you to you too. You are part of that community. The community doesn't just exist on live streams, it exists on all the channels that I have online. So thank you to all of you. Yeah, I could talk about COVID in the UK, but it just doesn't feel appropriate. You know, I wrote it down on my show notes today, and it's just like, really? After all of that introspection and reflection, we're going to just talk about conservatives being douchebags? I mean, we could do a whole episode on that. Screw it. Let's talk about this year. And I'm freestyling here, so I hope I don't just ramble on. I have many goals for this year. Last year, I wanted to get to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I didn't reach that goal. I didn't make that goal, but I did grow my other channels. I did get to 29,000 on TikTok. You know, I kept the podcast going. Yeah, I didn't think I'd get past 50 episodes, let alone 125. I guess a big thing that I've learned is to not focus on numbers so much, like all the bloody time. You know, numbers are important. They help you to monitor, analyze, reflect, and figure out what to do next. But if that's the only thing you're thinking about, I think it can negatively affect what you're doing, because your focus is just on getting views, and then that might actually in turn affect the type of content you put out, because your obsession is with just reaching people as opposed to building a brand, which is what I'm trying to do. And that's also why in the beginning I said about how I turn down things occasionally, because I think if you present yourself as one thing and then you start doing other stuff that doesn't really fit with who you are and you know, this person that you've sort of presented to the world, I think that can be distracting and can kind of push people away in a sense. My brand, if you want to call it that, is to try to present me in the most authentic way possible. Like, am I this animated and energetic all the time? No, of course I'm not. But this is still me, though. If you see me in a conversation with someone and I'm, you know, in real life, if I was really into that conversation, this would be how I would be. I would be quite energetic and invested in that conversation. But the reality is we're not all this animated 24/7. And I realize that, but you have to turn up the dial a little bit for the camera, you know? So it was always, how could I be as authentic as possible to you and also be entertaining? That's the mindset I try to have with everything that I do. Whether or not that's good or not, that's up to you, the listener, the viewer, the watcher. But for me, it makes sense in my head. So yeah, that's what I try to do. But yeah, I keep digressing. Goals for this year, goals for 2022. Well, I want to get into acting properly. I've done acting before, but I want to try and get some acting roles, get some voice acting roles, get some on-screen acting roles, something, anything. I want to get into acting. I want to release my record this year, my EP or album or something. I am trying to save money and stuff, but it's hard. There's a lot of things making that difficult, but I'm thinking more clearly when it comes to these things. I have plenty of songs to record. It's just a matter of when and how much. That's the deal. That's a big goal of mine. And I suppose the other goal is that I would like to get sponsors for the podcast, and also maybe some sponsorship opportunities on TikTok or something like that. Because I've had some offers, but it just didn't work out, unfortunately. But I think that would be that would help me to recognize that, okay, we're now kind of reaching a new level of success, because now I'm earning money from it. Like, I don't earn any money from anything I do online at all. Not even Twitch. There's a rule on Twitch that you have to reach a threshold of like $100 in order to cash out. And I have about a handful of people that subscribe to me and support me on Twitch. Thank you so much. But yeah, I ain't seeing any of that money. Probably not for a long time. But that's fine. I don't do any of these things to earn money. Like, I would love to earn money from the podcast and TikTok and everything else that I do online, but I realize it's not quite the right time yet. And also, I'm just looking for work. I want to be a professional actor and musician and presenter of sorts. You know, those are the three things I really want to do with my life. And these things I do online help me to achieve that. But it's a road, it's not a race. I don't know how long this is going to take. All I know is that I'm going to work as hard as I possibly can to make it happen, and work as hard as I can to make all of you happy and smile and feel entertained. So with that, I want to say a massive thank you. Happy New Year. And I shall see you in the next episode. Thank you very much for watching, for listening. Peace out. See you in the next one.